You know what, guys? I did it. I went against all expectations that society puts upon me as an almost 30-year-old woman, and I put the keychain on my backpack. Okay, hi and welcome to this video. I'm Laura, and today I will be doing my February wrap-up. Sorry for the pause, I was just thinking about how wrong February sounded. That's not a nice word to say. But anyways, so let's get into it. Okay, so I have to start with 2 DNFs, and the first one's going to be Legendborn by Tracy Deonn. I really tried to like this book because everyone on BookTube that I've seen has been raving about this book and saying how good it was, that it was the next best thing to God, maybe, I don't know. Everyone liked it. So I thought maybe I'm just wrong. But as you can see, I read half of the book, so it's not just like 30 pages that I read and then I put it away. But to be honest, I don't see anything remarkable about this book. So for me, it just feels like one of those very typical urban fantasy, secret society, demon slayer books with a kind of love triangle, I think, with a protagonist who really annoyed me. I'm very sorry, I know she's grieving, I've said that before, but there was nothing special about this book. So I just, like I said, I read half of the book, and I took out the bookmark because I only have 4 of them, but I put in a piece of paper. So if all of you out there tell me that it gets better past page 260, I might pick it up again. But so far, I can't understand the hype at all. So, I mean, I'm a person who usually finishes books, so I finished Cinderella is Dead, which I did not really like. And I finished Lifestyles of Gods and Monsters, which is also not a good book. But you know what? They were entertaining. This book, it gave me info dumps upon info dumps and stuff that was not interesting. So there were so many words that were... I mean, I know that when you do your world building, you have to put in a lot of world building, and generally I like that. But in this book, it was just so tedious to get through because I didn't care about anything, actually. Yeah, and also the main character, she was introduced to this world, maybe, so on the page I'm on, maybe it's been like maybe 1 week she's been in this society of secret demon slayer people, and honestly she's so good at everything. So she's like a natural, and she's adapting so fast, and she's always like, yeah, us demon hunters. I think she said something similar somewhere in this book, and I was like, you're not really, you haven't really been in this society for a long time, so why do you talk like that? And also there's at one point there was one point where I thought, oh, maybe this is going to get interesting, because there was like a second secret society, and not really a secret society, but maybe a different magic system was introduced, and I thought, oh, that's interesting. So maybe it gets good from here. But it didn't. It just stayed very uninteresting. So there were a bunch of characters who participated in this kind of tournament, because I like tournaments, so I don't mind tournaments, but this one, and also like almost every scene that happened, so they were like, maybe, no they didn't, but they could have been sitting by a campfire and being like, oh, let's just make some marshmallows and whatever, and then they would be like, oh, there's a demon over there. So every scene was interrupted by a demon or something bad happening, and I was like, can't you just let the people breathe for a moment? I just had no downs, it was all ups. And yeah, I honestly can't see why people enjoy this book so much. I mean, it has a 4.5 rating on average in Goodreads. A 4.5. What the hell? That means it's God tier book level. I can't comprehend why people like this so much. It just, maybe something's wrong with me. I don't know. It's just I don't know. I didn't want to read on. So, but if you tell me, oh no, it gets so good later on. It's the best book. Maybe I'll give it another try. That's why I put a piece of paper inside so I can pick it up again if need be. But for now, no, I'm sorry. I really wanted to like it. I tried, but I always found myself wanting to pick up something else because I didn't care. It left me on the road somewhere, this book, and then it went, bye, I'm moving on, see you, never. Yeah, and that's where I am right now, in the middle of the road. So I DNF'd this book. Yeah, but maybe I'll try again sometime. I also made some juice mixed with sparkling water for my hydration and sugar input. Okay, so the second book I DNF'd was Sorcery of Thorns. That's not easy to say. By Margaret Rogerson, I think. I listened to the audiobook and I didn't hate it. It was okay, but I just was like, I was not feeling it. So I got the feeling that at some point it turned into something that I did not really enjoy, and it was kind of slow. So this book is about a girl, Elizabeth Meredith. I don't remember her name. So she is living in this library, and she's like books are coming alive sometimes, and they are the bookkeepers, the wardens of the book prison, I think. And she's an apprentice, but she's also an orphan, and things get bad, and she's accused of crime, and she gets carried away by the handsome guy. And so I actually enjoyed the banter between the handsome guy and her. I thought they made for a cute couple, but then things happened, and I just felt like like I said, it's not a bad book. I just did not have the motivation to go on because it was not that interesting. So I thought, this is not going to make me happy. And there are other books that I would like to read or listen to as an audiobook. And so I don't need to finish this. And that's why I dropped it. Okay, but now let's get to the books that I did finish. I will not include the books that I finished in the first half of the month in this video, because I already made a video for those. Okay, the first book I finished is Tyll by Kehlmann. This is the German book that I read for my series of German books that have an English translation. And this is a kind of historical fiction novel about Tyll Uhlenspiegel, who is like a trickster, jokester, and like a general showman. And he travels through Germany during the 17th century, and things happen. So this is actually more a story about war, so the 30 Years' War that is raging at the time, and not actually about his so it is about his story, but not that much. And yeah, I liked it, so you can check out the other video if you want to know more about this book. But I think it is quite interesting. So another book that I finished is Sorcery of Thorns. No, Caraval by Stephanie Garber, I think. Yeah. So I listened to this as an audiobook. I think I listened to the German audiobook, which I had for some reason, because I think at one point I was in the mood for it, and then I didn't finish it, and then I picked it up again. Hello, pigeon. So anyways, I enjoyed it. It was not something that is like the greatest thing that ever happened to me. I really, really liked the setting and the premise of the book, because you had this fancy carnival with magic, and it was quite surreal, so I really enjoyed this. I wasn't a big fan of the main characters. I don't think any of the main characters were that interesting. I also... So the ending was kind of meh. And certain things that happened were kind of meh as well. So I don't know if I want to continue on with the series, but I checked, and the second book, I think, is going to take place at another carnival. And I really enjoyed that aspect of the first book, so I might have to give it a shot someday. It was fine, I enjoyed it, but it wasn't that special to me. So the next book I finished is These Violent Delights by Chloe Gong, which is a Romeo and Juliet retelling that takes place during the 1920s in Shanghai. So the characters that I liked most from the original play, I liked most in this book as well. So but I also liked Juliet in this book, and I think the Romeo stand-in in this book was quite okay as well. So I really liked the characters. Most of them were very interesting. Sorry. And there was also this mystery aspect of a monster awakening in Shanghai and people dying of madness by ripping out their own throats and stuff like that. So I was really intrigued by that. I actually think that the monster aspect, or the madness that killed the people, was the most interesting part of the book for me. And unfortunately that fell flat in the second half. So I really enjoyed the beginning and the first half and stuff, and then it was a bit not anticlimactic, but I didn't really think that the ending was that great. And I think that this would have worked better as a standalone, so there will be a second book, and I can't say anything for the second book because it doesn't exist yet. But I think this could have been resolved in just one book. And I will read the second book when it's out in, I don't know, November or something. So I still enjoyed the book. I don't think that this Romeo and Juliet part was quite there. So if you had changed the names of the characters and not promoted this as a Romeo and Juliet retelling, I don't think that I would have guessed that it was. So I don't think the Romeo and Juliet part is very strong in this book. But I still enjoyed it. I will pick up the sequel. Overall, I would recommend this one if you're into some historical fiction. What the hell? Sorry. Recommendation. Okay, the next book I finished, finally, is The Well of Ascension by Brandon Sanderson. This is the first book in the first Mistborn trilogy, which I have read before, so this was a reread. And I don't think I have that much to say about it. I still enjoyed it. I don't think I enjoyed this as much as the first book while rereading this, because this book has a lot of talking and politics. And I don't think that bothered me as much when I read this for the first time, but rereading this, some of those conversations were just tedious to get through, and I don't know why. But still, it's a great book, and if you like the first book, you will definitely enjoy the second book. I will reread the third one, I don't know, sometime this year maybe. Okay, another one that I just want to mention briefly is Eroberung by Laurent Binet. This is a French novel translated into German and into English soonish in September. This is about what would have happened if the Inca had conquered Europe and not the other way around. So I really enjoyed this book. It's like a record of history, and really a novel. So this didn't have a novel feeling to me. But it's still enjoyable. I think the concept is very, very interesting. I wish there were more of those kind of books where you have like history and then you turn it around by just saying, oh no, but what if something else happened? And I really enjoyed that. So I have said before, I hope he writes a sequel. I don't think he will, because these kinds of books, they never get sequels. But I would really like to see what modern times would look like if those things had happened during history. But yeah, check out the review if you want to know more about this book. But overall, this is a recommendation for if you want something different for a change. Not that other books aren't different, but sorry, this is good. Okay, and then the final book that I finished in February is Orphans of the Tide by Struan Murray. This is a middle grade book, and I listened to the audio because, I don't know, I had, at that time I was really like, oh, I want to read some middle grade. And then I downloaded the audiobook, and I really, really liked it. So this was, I don't know why, but I really enjoyed this book. So the book starts with a whale stranding in this, so you have the city which is slowly drowning, and there's some rooftops poking out of the water, and the world is kind of shitty, and there is a whale that strands upon one of those rooftops. And so the protagonist of this book, Ellie, she is present during that whale stranding, and she goes to the whale, and then she cuts it open and she pulls out a boy. So this is how the book starts, with a boy being pulled out of a whale. And in this world, there is this enemy who inhabits one person, so the vessel, and all people in the city assume that the boy that came out of the whale is this vessel. And Ellie is like, oh no, but he's just a boy, and she wants to protect him. And then things go on from there. So I really enjoyed this book. This had, so I think the one story development that was kind of a twist, it doesn't happen that late. I think it happened through something like, I don't know, 2/3 through the book. I saw that coming. But that might just be because I'm older and I've read other books before. And so I think I predicted that just because of that. If I were like 12 years old or something and I read this, I don't think it would have been that obvious to me. So I can't really take away any credit from this book for doing the things it did. And to be honest, I enjoyed it so much that I picked up the sequel right away. So that's why I have this book in physical form, because I can't just put the sequel on my shelf. That would look weird. And so this just came out a few days ago, I think. And so on the back it says it has an audio available. But I couldn't find that on Amazon, so I just had to buy the physical edition. And I'm really excited for this, because I think that the writing in the first book was really great, and I'm really excited to see where the author takes us in this world. So this takes place in a different place, and what I didn't see when I was listening to the audio, obviously, is that they have this map in front of the book, and I like maps, and this one's really cool, and this one has one as well, so those maps are really great, and I love them, and it's just, I'm really excited to read this one at some point in March or April, I don't know, but yeah, so I can only recommend Orphans of the Tide. If you want a middle grade book, that's a bit darker. So like I said, it starts with a boy getting pulled out of a whale, and it also has some darker themes later on. So I wouldn't give this to, I don't know, 8-year-old child. So maybe for older, younger teens. Older, not teens. Whatever, so yeah. But if you want a middle grade book that's not really that childish, this one's a recommendation. Okay, so those were all the books that I read in February. Now I still have some left that I'm still reading. So the first two I want to show you are not really, so I don't read them frequently because they're short story collections, but I just want to show them to you because they're quite cool. The first one is this one right here. It's Ghost Stories from Japan, so it's a German book. And I got this for my birthday back in November. So my girlfriend gave this to me, and it has some really great illustrations. Let me just find So it looks really, really pretty, and it has those kind of short stories from Japanese folklore. And here, fish. And so, yes, I really enjoy the stories that I've read so far. So I think I'm on page 50 something. And I haven't read this in a while, but I will finish this at some point, so I don't count this towards my currently reading, but it's here in my life, and I will finish this eventually, and I think it's very, very pretty, and I really like the illustrations, and so I just want to show you this book because I love it so much. So the second book that I'm not really reading is 8,000 Beginnings and Endings. This is a short story collection by authors of Asian origin. So those stories are retellings of popular myths and legends from all over Asia. So you always have they tell you where the story is from. So you got some from Filipino, Chinese, Hmong, Punjabi, Vietnamese, Korean, South Asian, Gujarati, Japanese, and that's it. Yeah, but I have read, I think, 1/3 of the book, or half, something like that. And so far the stories were really enjoyable. There was one story about, so feeding ghosts, something like that. That maybe made me tear up a bit because it was a really sad story. But yeah, so far I'm really into this book. And also the cover art is by my favorite cover artist, who also illustrated Last Night at the Telegraph Club and Descendant of the Crane and The Seventh Perfection, which I haven't read yet, but it looks pretty. So yeah, if you want some Asian-inspired short stories, you should pick this up, and I don't think you will disappointed. Okay, and now the books that I am reading right now is, the first one is The Voyage to Magical North. This is another middle grade book because I was really in the mood for middle grade books, and I'm almost done with this book. I don't like this as much as Orphans of the Tide, because it's recommended for ages 8 to 12, and I think it's a bit more childish than the other story. So this is about pirates, but like the child version of pirates. And so the main character, she's called Brian, and there's another guy called Peter, and they end up on this pirate ship by accident, and then they just try to find Magical North. And there is also an evil wizard, and also Peter is a magician, and stuff happens, and but it is, I suppose children would enjoy this more, but for me there is so they don't get to settle in their new environment before they go on those adventures. So they end up on the ship, and then stuff happens all the time. And I mean, it's not a very long book, so you would expect some action all the time. But yeah, this is not that great. I will still finish it because it's an easy read, and I'm still interested. But if you are like, oh, I can only buy one middle grade book this month, then I would definitely go for Orphans of the Tide. So the next one that I'm still reading, and that is quite a big boy or girl, I don't know, maybe it's girl, is The Absolute Book by Elizabeth Knox. So I first picked up on this book when I was reading an article on the internet that said, oh, this book is maybe the best new fantasy in 2021, and it doesn't even have an American publisher. And I was like, okay, sounds interesting. And then I read the blurb thing, and it still sounded interesting, so I'll just read it to you. It says, Taryn Cornick can barely remember the library in her old family home. Since her sister was murdered, she's forgotten so much. Now it's all coming back. The fire, the thief, the scroll box. People are asking questions about the library, questions that might relate to her sister's death, and something called The Absolute Book, a book in which secrets are written and which everyone believes only she can find. They insist Taryn be the hunter, but she knows the truth. She is the hunted. The absolute book is a tale of sisters, ancient blood, of a forgotten library, murder, revenge, and a book that might just have the answer to everything. So this sounded quite intriguing, right? And I'm like 170 pages in. It has a little bit over 600 pages, so I'm almost 1/3 into this book. And I must say it's really confusing. So I don't know if it's just the writing, but sometimes I'm just like, what the hell is happening? What's going on? Can we just pause for a second and just, what's going on? Yeah, I don't know yet. I definitely want to keep going because the premise itself is interesting. And so in this book, the Necronomicon from H.P. Lovecraft is mentioned, and I really enjoy Lovecraft stories, and I don't know, I'm hoping that this one will turn into some kind of eldritch horror book. I don't think it will. But yeah, it's just, I don't know yet. I just don't know. It's weird, but it's not weird in a good way. It's weird in a confusing way, in a way that I'm like, what is going on? I don't know. I don't understand. And that doesn't really so propel it to me wanting to read it. And like I said, it's very hard for me to get through this book. So usually I'm not that slow of a reader, but this book, it's taking me ages to read a page. And yeah, so it's not something for going to bed. So before going to bed. But I will read on, and then I'll see, and I hope it gets better, because I think this has much potential, but it's still a bit confusing. Okay, so another book that I'm reading is The Library of the Unwritten by A.J. Hackwith. So this was the pick for the best first paragraph, and I'm on page 65, 64, and it's okay. So I'm sorry, this is not the greatest book ever written. So this is about the Library of the Unwritten, which is in Hell's library, so Hell has a library, and it's about books that have never been finished, I guess, or published, and sometimes they come to life because I don't know why. And so the protagonist is the librarian of this library, and she has to keep those books in check. And those books that are unwritten, they just, I don't know, I think they manifest as one of the characters, and they try to look for their authors, to just try to convince them to write on the story. And so far it's been okay. So it feels, to be honest, it feels a bit like a cheap TV show, where you have this, so you want your fantasy show, but you don't have the budget, so you have one semi-fantasy-like setting, but that always takes place in, I don't know, just a normal city, because you have those characters that go there. I can see that as an episodic TV series, easily. So it reminds me a lot of Warehouse 13. I think that's the one. It kind of has the same feeling. So, but I will still read on. It's an easy read. It's just not that exciting. So, but like I said, I'm only 65 pages in, and I will see where it goes. And the final book that I'm currently reading is Persephone Station by Stina Leicht. This is a fantasy book about a very backwater planet, and I think a group of mercenaries. So I'm on page 150, and I've really enjoyed this so far. So this is also not the deepest story you will get, like, ever, but it's easy to read and it's fun. So far I read through this very fast, and so it has this easy science fiction Firefly-like feeling. And so I think the part that I've read so far was a bit of the introduction, and that we're now getting to the meaty stuff. There's also an AI, so you have like artificial intelligence, and so if you're really into hard science fiction with all the technical stuff, I don't think you will get this from here. But there's also some queer representation. We have one main character who is non-binary, and then I think we also have a lesbian main character, or one of the, not really main characters, but one of the side characters. And I really enjoy that. So I enjoy the setting, I enjoy the writing so far. It's nothing spectacular, but I think I will finish this soon because it's quite an easy read. And if you're like, and if you're into this kind of thing, I think you should give it a chance and see if you like it or not. Okay, yeah, and so this is my wrap-up video. I think I talked quite a bit about the books that I read, but some of them I just wanted to talk about for a moment. So, yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video. You're very welcome to leave a comment if you've read any of the books or just what you read this month and enjoyed, and then I'll see you in the next video. Bye.